There, it worked. My YouTube, when I go live on YouTube, it often glitches. I don't know why. So anyway, I would like to do the YouTube and the TikTok at the same time, but because YouTube often glitches, I have to get this going first. That's why you get to see me just sitting here like this doing nothing. I'm just waiting for my TikTok people to turn up. My main audience is on TikTok. Hello, Mercedes Gonzalez. Is that your real name? What a beautiful name. Mercedes Gonzalez. Beautiful. I'm sure I say it horribly, but beautiful name. Mercedes Gonzalez. Is that your name? Mercedes Gonzalez. Very pretty. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Where are you from? Oh, where are you from? While we're waiting, I'd like to know where people are from. I'm just sitting here reading everything. Where are you from? And was that Mercedes Gonzalez? Is that your real name? I was just saying, I just love that name. It just flows. I just see the most gorgeous names on here because I get clients from all over the world. And I usually pronounce them all wrong, of course. Australia. Hi, Australia. Whereabouts? I lived in Sydney for a year and then Brisbane for 15 years. Both my kids were born in Australia and raised there. Saudi Arabia. Excellent. Saudi Arabia. You've been here before, haven't you? West Clare in Ireland. West Clare. I'm going to write that down, look it up later. I know nothing about Ireland. Never been there. I do plan on going everywhere one day. I want to go to England. I've been there once, and Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. I don't know many people have been to Wales, but I'd like to go there. Arizona, Flagstaff. I've heard of that. Isn't that a lot of retirees go down there? A lot of snowbirds from Canada go to Flagstaff. Is that right? Melbourne. Oh, hi, Melbourne. Yeah. Never been down there. The furthest south, I don't even know if Canberra's south. I think it is south of Sydney. But we went to Canberra once. Canberra is the capital of Australia, and it's literally just a politician's city. And it's been built like a circle. So the Senate or whatever it's called, I don't know what it's called over there. I can't remember. I'm not political, obviously. But all the government buildings are in the middle, and then everything just spirals out. It's really neat. Give you props. Thanks very much for that. I'm fascinated to hear where people are from. I'm not a traveler. I did a lot of traveling when I was young, and then I just kind of got burnt out with it. And now I've got no kids, no pets. And I've got a lot of stuff going on in my business right now, but as soon as that's settled down, then I'm going to start traveling. Louisiana. Hi, Louisiana. Nope, Flagstaff is in the mountains. I knew that. Sorry about that. Have you been to Mexico? A few times. Yeah, I love Mexico. I went down to Club Meds because I like traveling alone. I usually try and travel alone. And so I like Club Meds because down in Mexico, I didn't know what I was doing down there. So I had a couple of scary experiences down there. Once I was at the Club Med, I was okay. It was getting to and from. But anyway, yeah, love Mexico. Beautiful. The first Club Med I went to was Playa Blanca, and it's in this cove. It's just the most beautiful setting. Anyway, okay, I listen to you a lot, and that's Saudi Arabia. Yeah, listen, I love your methods. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, sorry if Flagstaff, I messed that one up, didn't I? Where did they go? Where do the snowbirds go in Arizona? It's just because I've heard of Flagstaff so many times, but that was just familiar, so I'm trying to backtrack and sound like I know what I'm talking about here. Okay. Dublin. Hi, Dublin, Ireland. I always thought I was Irish. I was adopted, and I was told I was half French and half Irish. So every St. Paddy's Day, I'm a little bit of the Irish in me, and then I found out I'm not Irish at all. I'm French and Norwegian. What's the best way is that the best way to reach you? Well, if you want to reach me, you can go on my website, and I have a contact page if you want to reach me. I get a lot of, I don't know why, I guess I'm on some kind of a list, but most people who use that contact page, most people email me because I think I have my email somewhere here. Anyway, that contact page, it's usually people trying to sell Viagra. Why on earth they'd be contacting a parenting coach to sell Viagra? I have no idea. Anyway, it's quite funny. Okay, I'm gonna get going. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on my website, it's bratbusters.com. You can hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses, or download my free behavior board. The behavior board is unique because you're on there too. I'm pretty sure I invented that. If anyone else out there is using it, I'm thrilled because spreading the word is good stuff. Anyway, and if you want to hire me, it's all done on Zoom, so it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. I adjust my hours to suit your part of the world. Sometimes I work really early in the morning. Sometimes I work really late at night. You'd better off getting me early in the morning. I'm not a night person. So, once I get into it, I'm okay, but getting me revved up at night for a session like late is hard. Okay, so I'm just going to comment here. I did do a video, and I'm going to fess up. You know, I can't hide anything. I just, everything just falls out of my mouth. I did a video. It did well. I knew it was going to do really well. It was stop arguing with me about me talking about ignoring tantrums. I was trying to fish out the other parenting experts to see if they're still highly offended by me. Yes, they are. So that's good news. It means that I'm still being watched, and that means that they're very threatened by me and my methods. It's upsetting them because you should see the venom that's coming out. And so I don't know why they bother looking at me, because they don't believe anything I say, and that's fine. But what I'm trying to do is I'm really trying to spread the word that, children need a leader. They do not need this pleaser, this one discussing all their thoughts and feelings. It doesn't mean that you're ignoring their thoughts and their feelings and their needs. It's actually quite the opposite. So, but anyway, a really good leader addresses all that. That's why my kids told me everything. So, because they felt safe with me, they were free to be who they were. So this stuff is the exact opposite of ignoring all their feelings. Ignoring a tantrum is not ignoring a child's needs, wants, feelings, or the wants, yes, but not the feelings, the emotions. It's not about that. Anyway, so yeah, people are still fighting with me, which is, of course, a huge compliment. I don't go on their pages. I never look at them. I have no idea who they are, but anyway. So yeah, that was a little bit intentional. And they came at me with such venom this time too. I thought they would have got bored with me. I don't know why. I would have thought I would have been old hat by now. But anyway, that's okay. Now, also, someone just said, Blissa, is that your name? I believe what you are saying is right. Thank you. I have made positive changes. User. I also want to stress, someone on another platform that I have said, thanks for teaching us how to raise our kids the right way. And I didn't say this because I was very appreciative of that, but what I want to say also is that I don't want to set myself up as saying this is the only way, the right way, the perfect way. The reason is nobody really knows. I know my methods work very well with hundreds or thousands of kids. I've worked with so many kids in all different fields. And also I've been coaching now for 17 years. I figured out what works and what doesn't. I just have. So, but that's my way. There are probably other ways out there, and you've got to do what resonates with you. If my leadership style resonates with you, then use it. Give it a go for 3 weeks usually, and just to see if it's going to work. But I don't really want to say that my way is the only way. I think that's kind of pompous and arrogant. But yeah, I don't want to, I believe in it, but it's my way and it's what works for me. It's kind of like I'm a vegan, but I'm not pro-vegan. It works for me. My method has worked for, all my clients and all that, all those years, but there may very well be some other methods out there that are great too. I don't know. I don't research that. I just stay in my own lane, teach what I know. But yeah, I don't want people to think that I think that I'm right, because no one's really got it figured out. Nobody knows. Nobody knows exactly what's the perfect way to parent. Anyone who says they know exactly the perfect way to parent is full of crap. Nobody really knows. You would have to take 1,000,000 100-year-olds and study how they were raised and to actually figure it out. Like, it's just nobody really knows. Okay. What a rant. I'm done. Okay. How to know the difference. Oops, sorry, it flipped. I can't go back. I get nauseous. I get dizzy. Just wondering by ignoring tantrums, says the message, I'm only here for you for the right feelings. That's a really good point. Because a tantrum isn't a feeling. That's the point. It started with a feeling, and the feeling is I'm not getting my own way. That it started, but the tantrum itself is a loss of emotional control. It's actually not a feeling, okay? Because once they rev up, they're gone. It would be like, how you see an adult and they're just going off their nut, they're just going crazy. There's no feelings in that. It's just a loss of emotional control. It's no different with kids. But yeah, the right feelings. I'm only here for you for the right feelings. Yeah, it's not about feelings. It's about actions. I'm addressing the actions, not the feelings. Big difference. Huge difference. Geez, I got to write that down. That was so feelings, feelings. So when I say ignore a tantrum is an action. It's not a feeling. Does that make sense? Yeah. What's something you wish people would ask but never do? I don't know. I'm no good at that because I always feel pressure. Like it's a game show. Beep. I ran out of time. I don't know. Usually, well, no. The one thing that I love to see is when people answer my questionnaire. Whenever someone hires me, I send out a questionnaire and they have to answer it. And then at the very bottom of that questionnaire, it says, "What do you want me to help you with?" The parents that I think they get it, that already get it, is help me be a leader. They don't mention anything their kids are doing wrong, or they might, and then at the very end, basically just help me be a leader. Because I don't fix kids, I train parents. It's not about your kids, it's about you. So that's what I love to hear. In that, they already kind of are on board with this. So I don't have to explain, because so many parents want to talk about, yeah, another thing my kid's doing wrong, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing. And I'm like, yeah, don't waste your money on me talking about that, because we've already addressed. I understand what's going on. I'm working on you, not your kids. So it kind of says it like it is. Okay. You have to take in lots of wisdom to be. I missed that. I'm trying to go back, but okay. A lot of wisdom to be a better parent. You have to want to be better. Yeah. I love when you rant. Thanks. Some people hate it, so I'm trying to mix it up. I like ranting. Everybody likes ranting. What's the difference between tantrum and needs? Well, a tantrum is a want. They're only tantruming because they didn't get what they wanted. Okay, if you're not meeting their needs, that's a whole other issue. If they're hungry and tired, and if they've been beaten and they have a tantrum. Although children who are mistreated don't usually tantrum. There's no point, because anyway. That's another thing. And so a tantrum is not a need. It's because they're not getting what they want. They didn't get what they want, when they wanted, and how they wanted it. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's not a need. It's a want. You can address the wants. You don't have to validate all their wants. Your needs. You're validating their needs, not all their wants. Oh, I'm going to do another video on that. Validate needs, not wants. I have the computer open. I don't know why I don't type it. Instead, I'm going to this pen here. Needs, not wants. Does that make sense, though? Yeah, you validate all their needs. Their needs are to feel heard, too, and to feel they have a voice. I never really told my kids what to do. I wanted them to express themselves. But they knew. But one thing I did insist on is that they treat people with respect, because I treated them with respect. I was listening to them. You want to meet their needs and manage their wants. That's how you do it. So. Tantrums aren't meltdowns. Yes, they are. They're meltdowns, scenes, conniption fits. They're all the same thing. What's the difference? You're just mixing words. People have often said that. No, they're all the same, to me anyway. Won't the child feel neglected if ignored? Thanks so much for asking that. If they feel neglected just because you ignore a fit or a tantrum or a scene, you got bigger fish to fry. That means their needs aren't being met. Okay, you don't meet their needs by giving them any attention during a tantrum. Their other needs are not being met. If they're that insecure about being loved, you got bigger fish to fry. It's not about ignoring the tantrum. So, 17-year-old hits objects when mad and doesn't listen when we tell him no, and he's only a baby still. 16 months I consider still a baby. It's consistent corrective action with toddlers and babies. So it's consistent corrective actions. They do not learn through words. It's all actions, and they learn through repetition. You got to do it like 100 times. Just say no, take the objects away. If he's hitting objects, then just remove him from say no and remove him from the objects. Just for a minute or two. He'll eventually learn. But yeah, they won't learn right away at all. My 2-year-old has been so difficult today. I guess I'm not responding properly if he's having an issue with, hanging something. Anyway, 2-year-olds being a pain. They are a pain sometimes. They're just brand new, fresh human beings. They've got one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. They're just forming. right? If you've only been in the world for 2 years and for one of them, you were just a potato laying in a crib. I mean, think about it. They're going to have to work through a whole bunch of stuff. The world's very confusing to them. So yeah, they're going to be difficult sometimes. It's just the way it is. They might just be cranky. They might be pulling a tooth. They might be backed up, like constipated. That's really common too. I was working with someone years ago, and their kid just had this horrible, I don't know why. I said, could they be constipated? And sure enough, I won't go into great detail. It's exactly what was going on because nothing was adding up to me. I said, I don't know. Anyway, so, but yeah, maybe there's other things going on. Having an issue with my 4-year-old listening to me and not dad, and he gets so upset. The dad gets so upset. Well, what are you doing right and what's the dad doing wrong? You'd assess your different parenting styles and find out why the child's listening to you and not dad. That's what I would do. Um, should a 2.5-year-old be put on timeout? I hate timeout, can't stand it, never done it, never will. To me, timeout, it's not abusive, but I think I've said that once. It's not abusive, but it's mean. So you go over there, you're not even worth talking to. You go think about what you just did. Then when you're done with those 5 minutes in the corner, I'm going to come over and lecture you even more and discuss everything that you did wrong. I think it's horrible. So 2-year-old, it's consistent corrective action right in the moment. You hit the dog, that's no. That's it, no. And then remove the dog. Don't let them near that dog again for a while. So consistent corrective actions. Toddlers learn through repetition. Timeout just teaches them that they are a piece of crap. That's all they're thinking about. They're sitting in that corner feeling like a piece of crap. There's nothing. I like to build kids up, make them feel good, guide them into making good decisions. That's not the way you do it. That's how you lower their self-esteem and make them feel like crap. You go sit over there. It's like you're a piece of garbage. Just go over there. I hate it. I just hate timeout. Why do I get so heated over that? That's not the one that I get the most heated over. You know which one I get the most heated over. No one says it. You want to be a better parent. By the way, we're all just trying to figure it out too. Like what I do has worked for me for 51 years. Times change, but people don't. I know how to bring out the best in kids, that they feel good about themselves and they like me, therefore they want to please me. And when they're teenagers, they just don't want to disappoint me. You want them to become the best they can be in their own unique way. That's what I'm good at, okay? That's leadership. But I also know how to correct them when they make a bad decision. And I don't mean just a little thing. I mean when they're rude or disrespectful, that kind of bad decision. So love your video. Struggling with my 20-month-old hitting in public wherever she doesn't get her way. Yeah, consistent corrective action. That's all. On the dog and won't listen. On the dog and won't listen when I say to stop. So I can't move the dog. What do I do? No timeout. On the dog. Is this... on the dog, I don't quite know what you mean. I have said this many times before. If you cannot keep an animal safe in your home with a toddler that's violent towards an animal, rehome the animal. I'm a huge animal rights activist. All my pets were rescues, and yeah, there's no way I would subject an animal to abuse. I just wouldn't. So if you can't control your toddler, if you can't keep them separate and keep them safe. I actually was saying this one day, and someone told me they actually emailed me, or I think they emailed me or something, and they said they actually rehomed the dog because they had a couple kids that were just out of control, and they said it probably would, and I said it'd probably take you months to get those kids under control, and they didn't want to subject their dog to it. It was a little dog too. Anyway, I'm not saying you should get rid of your dog, but just think about what I said. Is it best for the dog? Like, you have to be able to keep them separate. Okay, good one. Running away in public or at restaurants, gets up and runs around. Okay, just put them on a leash. They have to earn their freedom. So a leash, a restraint, a harness, whatever you want to call it. If they are runners, that's a safety issue, okay? Especially if you're out in public. I mean, that's a safety issue. You restrain them in the car because you don't want them to be killed in a car crash. And you want to restrain them out in the road so you don't want them to get hit by a semi-trailer. And if they are runners, they just have to learn that they can't do that. So yeah, I would get them on a restraint. I'm so glad Ryan Allen called you out. I have no idea who that is. No idea. I don't look at anyone else on here because I know what I'm doing. I don't need to look at anyone else. I teach through experience. I know there's a lot. I've said this at the very top of this live. I put a recent video out and I was trying to fish out all the other parenting people on here, and it worked. I wanted to see, am I still relevant? Am I still shaking things up? And anyone who spews hate, you got to wonder, where are they coming from? What's going on in their own heart? You know what I'm saying? Like that's a big move to go out and spew on other people. Yeah. So anyway, they don't make themselves look good. But I don't know who Ryanell. I haven't got a clue. I don't look at anyone else. Um, Counting more than time. Counting. LOL. You hate count. Oh God, I hate that. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, I hate the countdown method. That's my absolute least favorite common discipline method. I hate timeout. That's my third least favorite. I hate diversion. Here's some chocolate if you stop hitting the dog. And then my absolute worst one is by the time I count to 3, you better stop hitting the dog. So they keep pounding harder and harder. And then 3, break. No punishment, no lesson learned. They just learn they have to hit harder and faster in those three counts. It just makes you look like you're scared of them. I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to count 1, 2, 2.25. You see, it's not good. It's a complete mixed message. It's okay to be rotten in the short term, but not in the long term. That's what you're saying. Yeah, thanks for that, Tanisha. There was another one I was thinking of though, but I'd forgotten about that. I know there was something else I was thinking about. Okay. But yeah, that gets me riled up too. There's a few of them just because they're so common and it just doesn't make any sense at all to me. Okay, I have one, just don't use it at restaurants, just want to learn already. Okay, that's a classic example of I'm not willing to discipline, I'm just hoping that they just get it anyway. You just gotta take control. Leaders take control. I was just hoping that he would learn on his own. Well, he obviously isn't. You've got to teach him, okay? So that's like, oh, what is that? Something I was just talking about yesterday, I think. Well, I just expect them to know. No, you don't. Leaders don't. Leaders lead. Don't just say, well, I just expected him to, I want him to, oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. It's whenever I say that you completely childproof your home if you've got a toddler to make your life easier. I completely childproofed my whole home. Like it was nothing from the waist down. So the toddlers, I could just relax. I never had to say no. I could just relax and enjoy my toddlers. And I had friends I had one friend in particular, she was always complaining that her toddler was getting in the bathroom and brushing their teeth with the toilet brush. Well, I said, don't you just put a child lock on the door? And she goes, I refuse to do that. I want them to learn how not to get into things. I would rather not have my child brush the teeth with a toilet brush. So yeah, sometimes I just believe in just taking the leadership role sometimes. And that's one of those situations. Besides, my kids weren't used to being precocious. So when we took them out, they weren't precocious when we were out either. They weren't used to getting into things. Oh, someone's commenting about watching me if you don't like me. A lot of people do. And the reason why you watch people that you don't like is because they're shaking you up. They're somehow threatened. I'm making people think. That's all that is. That's a good thing. That's why I did that video, because I knew exactly it was gonna bring people out. I just knew it. So I just wanted to see, am I still relevant? Am I still shaking things up? That was my way of finding out. Why would I care about that? In case you're asking, you didn't, but why would I care about that? You know why? Because I get so many clients who follow those other methods and are in trouble because of it. So that's why I really try and encourage leadership over some of the other methods that are commonly being taught out there, because I know where it goes, and that's my clients complain every single day about that. What isn't working, but so trendy. I get it. Okay. It sounds like you had easy kids. One of them, yes, for sure. And the other one, they were both pretty easy in that because we weren't wild kids either, their dad and I. So yes, sort of, but I didn't learn much with them. My son could have been rebellious for sure. He had tantrums when he was little, and he definitely could have been the rebellious teen under different parenting for sure. If I had been the authority or the pleaser, he might have been a little bit more difficult. But not really, like he just wasn't a real, but I mean, just compared to his sister, she was super easy. Anyway, what was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, I always say I didn't learn much with my own kids. I got respect when they were tiny and then just kind of sailed right through the teen years. I learned this with hundreds of other kids in hospitals, homes, where else? Schools, detention centers. I've been everywhere. I've volunteered with kids all over the place. They taught me all this. And do you think I ever once was handed, here's an easy one, Lisa. No one ever handed me an easy kid. Not once, ever. It was always, good luck with this one. Good luck with this teenager. Good luck with this kid, with disabilities or, it was like, here you go. Here's a challenge. because that's what I did it for. I love the challenge. And when I say challenging disabilities, I don't mean just physical disabilities. I mean, behavioral issues. Children who were born with NAS, it's called different places in different worlds, but we used to call it narcotic addiction syndrome. So they're born addicted to something, any narcotic, drugs, alcohol, whatever, they're all drugs, right? So they were really challenging when they got to be older. So I've worked with a lot of those kids too. So yeah, there's no way I would teach this if I'm only basing it on my own 2 kids. There's no way I wouldn't be qualified. You have to have experience with hundreds of kids with all sorts of challenges. My favorite to work with was by far the troubled teenagers. By far, I learned more. I had patience I didn't know I had. I figured it out. I figured out how to work with them, like how to bring out the best, how to make them feel good about themselves. And when they feel good about themselves, when they're with you, they want to please you, and they certainly don't want to disappoint you. So yeah, they taught me more about human beings than anybody else ever did. Was those troubled teens, because they are raw, they're very expressive, they're in pain, they're challenging, and you never try and outsmart them, because I'll never be smarter than a troubled teen, I'll tell you that much. Never try and outsmart them, but I'm a good leader. I know how to make them feel good about themselves, and that's my strength, is making kids feel good about themselves. I ignored my 3-year-old tantrums, like you said, and it worked. Thanks. You're very welcome. Thanks for that vote of confidence on all this, because I get this every day with clients. They say this stuff works, but it's important because most people aren't going to hire me. So, you're just going to be watching me on here. So it's good to hear from other parents. This stuff just works. It just does. Changing a diaper, they're hitting and kicking. Both my kids went through that stage. I don't remember how old. Anyway, they both tried that out. They did it more with their dad than they did with me, because with their dad, he'd be more likely to say, okay, we'll take a break. I would never have done that. It's like I did the old elbow on the chest, just waiting. So I wasn't putting pressure on them, but they couldn't get up. And then I'd hold their legs like that, and I'd just wait. And I got real fast at doing that. But yeah, you just got to overpower them physically. It's not being mean. It's just getting that diaper on pronto. So yeah, they didn't fight me for long. It was a very quick stage with mom, I'll tell you. It's like mom isn't going to give in. It's like same with dad. If he tried to my son was the one who had tantrums. So if he was trying to get him into a car seat and he went stiff as a board, the dad might have let him stand beside the car for a minute till he calmed down. Mom would never have done that. I just waited with my hand on his stomach. As soon as he took a breath and weakened a little bit, bang, snap, snap, he was in there. So you just got to take charge. If they're trying to physically overpower you, you physically overpower them when they're toddlers. Not when they're teenagers, but when they're toddlers. Yeah, easy kids are not just luck. Thanks for pointing that out, because a lot of people used to say to me, you're so lucky you got such easy kids. But people who knew me would just laugh at that. They knew the work I put into those kids. So yeah, they were easy, but I put the work in. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you a good example of this. When they were little, when dad was alone with them, he was the easygoing one. Like, he just couldn't discipline. That was my job. I didn't want to messing them up. So I wanted to make sure I was the leader for sure. And I was also the goofy parent. So he was a great dad, but I was the leader, but I was also the goofball in the family, and I still am. Anyway, so a leader isn't serious. A leader, like, you can be as flamboyant and crazy as you want when everything's good. Anyway, they pushed him when I wasn't around. They would push him around a bit more, right? Oh, we want this, we want that. Or they would never have talked to me like that, ever. So you know what I said to him? He says, how do I handle that when I'm out alone with them? And I said, just say to them, do you want me to tell mom? Work like a charm. No. So yeah. What do you think about the gentle parenting call out on your tantrum videos? Not so gentle, is it? It says a lot, doesn't it? No comment. I did that on purpose because I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. And I thought, am I still relevant on TikTok? Like, are they still going to come after me with venom? That's why I put that video out. And it worked. I pulled them out. And yeah. But yeah, why are they still watching me? Why would they even look my way unless I'm a big threat? I must be threatening. That's why I never look at anyone else. I'm confident with what I do. I don't need to check in to see what anyone else is doing. My clients will tell me what hasn't worked. That's the only reason I know what's out there. I don't know who anyone else is or anything. Why would I? I know what I'm doing. I stay in my lane. I know what I'm doing. But yeah, they came out of the woodwork, came after me with venom. And my daughter said, "You must be loving this," because she knows me. And I said, "Yeah, it's great. You're awful. You're stupid. You don't know what you're doing." Like I was laughing. I love that stuff. Because I've worked with troubled teens. If you think any one of these people on here can upset me after what I've been through with troubled teenagers, you got another thing coming. I know where it comes from. It comes from insecurity and pain and feeling, unstable in your own beliefs. That's where all that comes from. I get that. I get that. So anyway, yeah, it's funny. It's just funny. I shouldn't say that. It makes me sound terrible, but I don't care. It's fun. Okay. Okay, how can I ignore my child in public without looking abusive? It works at home. Perfect question. I've got a perfect story for you. I've told this story many times. This is the mall story. My son was 3 and it was his second to last tantrum. And he had some dillies, but he was sort of slowing down because he knew with mom they're not going to work. They stop doing what doesn't work. It's just the way it is. So anyway, he's 3 years old. It's him and I in a mall, and we're just walking through the mall. I don't even know what happened. I don't know. Maybe he was tired. Who knows? Anyway, so he just starts having a tantrum. And it was a very loud, busy mall. So I thought, fine, I'm not going to disrupt anyone by letting him have a tantrum here. So I just pulled him off to the side and I pulled out my nail file and I'm just standing there like this, not looking at him, just waiting. This was the funny part. These young moms were walking by. "Oh, you should give him a hug. You need to validate his feeling." All this crap, right? And I'm like, keep going. Because I had tons of experience with kids before I had my own. So, but I was really enjoying this. It was a bit of a show, right? So I'm like, "Oh, keep going, keep going. He's alive," right? Blah, blah, blah. All these grandmothers and older, more experienced moms were coming up to me saying, "Good on you. You know what you're doing." I'm like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing." So I never cared what anyone else thought. And look at the source. Did I care what those young, inexperienced moms thought or those more experienced moms? Very different camps. Which one would I care more about? You see what I'm saying? It would be like taking financial advice from someone with $10 in the bank compared to someone with $1,000,000 in the bank. It's the same thing. Who am I going to take? Who am I going to care what they think of me? Think about that. All those young moms, they're trying to help, I guess, but it's they got $10 in the bank. So how can they bother me at all? Besides, I had so much experience with kids before, so that's why I was a very confident mother. But yeah, so it gave me a huge edge. Yes, my mom would just walk over me. Yeah, I would have done that. "Oh, are you there?" My mother, I never had a tantrum, and neither did my brother. She lucked out. But my mom was a very, um, I would call her a leader, but she wasn't as into discipline. But I cared what my mom thought. And this would have been my mom if I'd had a tantrum. If I ever acted out or anything, this was my mother. Are you kidding me? Like it was embarrassing because I didn't want to get my mom's disapproval because I hardly ever saw it. Same with my kids. They didn't like my disapproval because they hardly ever saw it. And if I ever went like this, really, they would be, "Oh, sorry, mom," because they respected me. And I felt that way with my mom. I would have been embarrassed if my mom had gone, "Are you kidding me with this?" I would have been embarrassed. There was no fear at all. It was just I respected her so much. I would have just felt embarrassed. Mom would just walk over me. I love that. Okay. Would be like taking advice from someone 200 years ago versus now. Mm, the thing is that what I do is still I do it every day. So are you just trying to insult me? Is that what that is? Taking advice from Dr. 200 years ago versus now? Oh, or just the experience base. So that's the experience. Is that what was I talking about? Um, oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Not exactly actually experience, but it's someone who knows what's going on. I had a really good way of answering that. And now I can't remember it because I got all muddled up. I got it mixed up. Medical's different from people. People being good with people it goes down in history, probably thousands of years. Kindness, respect, treating people well. That never really changes. Medicine's science. That's kind of different. People aren't like that. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, really good. This is such a good one. I love play dates for my kids, but not the bad habits the other kids they learn from other kids. Here's the thing, when you get really good at leadership, they're not susceptible to peer pressure. They don't pick up bad habits. They just don't. They're so they know who they are and they know how to act, so they're not susceptible to that. When they're past the age of about 3, under that, they might try stuff. Both my kids, probably around the age of 4 or 5, they must have seen it somewhere, I don't know where, but they both said this one thing 5 years apart. There's 5 years between them. My son said it first. He's the older one. He actually said to me one day, and I was meeting his needs. I knew he had enough to do. He said to me, "I'm bored." And the way he said it was that whiny tone, like really disrespectful, like, "I'm bored," in that snotty little tone. And I was shocked. And I said, "Oh, my precious, my poor angel, come with mommy. I can't handle the fact that you're bored." He already started looking scared. He thought, "Oh no, she's on to me." So I took him in the laundry room, filled up a bucket, and gave him a mop. He never said he was bored again. 5 years later, my daughter said, "I'm bored," like that. She must have heard some, like that tone of voice I never heard from them. So they must have heard some snotty kid say it to their mom. So anyway, then same thing. And as soon as she said that, my son went like this. He knew she'd get a mop and bucket. They never said they were bored again because I knew I was already meeting their needs. They had stuff to do, but they picked up that. They both picked up that thing. Oh, are you there? Oh, yeah. When you're walking over them. Oh, are you there? What was that under my foot? I got to scrape something off my shoe. I think my aunt, she was very funny, my Aunt Em. And I think she said when a kid's having a tantrum, you just, she said, you just ignore them and then you forget about them. And what's that on the bottom of my shoe? Oh, that's a kid. They were very funny. My mom and my Aunt Em were very funny. They grew up, had a really rough life, but they came out with a sense of humor, I'll tell you. Toddlers who throw fit, kicks, and scream for nap time, so they don't want to nap. Well, I don't know about that. Like both my kids stopped regular napping at about 12 months old. So I'm questioning maybe they don't need it, or are they so overtired that they do need it? Maybe you could ease them into it by reading a book first, having some quiet time. Let's read a book, and then they go off to bed. So sort of easing them into it. I don't know. I don't know how old they are. Because a lot of people call a 5-year-old a toddler, whereas to me a toddler is 1 and 2. 3 and 4 is a preschooler, 5 and up is schooled, and 9 is tween, 13 is teen. Advice and tips on how to teach an almost 3-year-old how to be patient and wait for things. Well, what are they doing? Like what I mean is that it's not necessarily they're patient. They just understand that if they have a fit, they're never going to get it. So like if I was getting something ready and an almost 3-year-old started getting impatient, I'd say, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to put it away for 5 minutes." Do you understand? They would know right away what I was doing. So, don't like that tone of voice. Don't like, see what I mean? Just make sure. I would make them wait longer if they're being rude. What do you think about my 5-year-old sleeps with me in my bed? Co-sleeping? I don't have any opinion on that. I have no opinion on co-sleeping, breastfeeding for years, homeschooling, religion. Those are all your own personal choices. So I don't have any. I honestly have no opinion on them. I know what I did and what I was comfortable doing, but I don't. It doesn't mean it's right. Those are not black and white issues. The only thing I'd say is about homeschooling. That I've seen as a consistent issue with children who are homeschooled is they often end up going into regular, like public high school or regular high school. They often struggle socially if they have not been socialized with non-homeschool kids previously, because homeschoolers tend to be not incestuous, but they have communities, and it's a great community, but I would still want my kids to get out and do sports and that with other kids so that they weren't just with other homeschool kids, because it is an alternate choice. It isn't the norm. So yeah, to better prepare them for the real world, make sure you also socialize them with non-homeschoolers. But yeah, I've consistently seen that being an issue with teenagers trying to assimilate into normal school. I need to learn how to be a great leader. I have a 3-year-old. Well, just keep watching. That's all I talk about. Is I never fix kids. I teach parents how to be leaders. That's all we do here. And you think about it this way. They say, "Well, you don't know this kid. You don't think I've worked with hard kids to deal with?" So, and I always manage to get respect. Is it the kid or is it me? Is it the ADHD, the troubled teen, the wild toddler, or is it me? If I can get respect from all kids just by being a calm leader, and they want to please me when they're little, they like that. They feel good about themselves. So you want kids to feel good about themselves. So they like themselves when they're with me. Therefore, they want to please me. When they're teenagers, You want them to be their own leaders. They just don't want to disappoint me. But even that, you're kind of lucky with that even. So yeah, you want teenagers to be their own leaders. You do not want obedient little soldiers for children at all. You want free thinking children who feel heard, respected, understood. That is so important, because when you give them that, that's meeting their needs. When you give them that, they're just usually a lot easier. They need to have a voice. There's parenting TikTok drama preschool made a critique video. Oh, lots of people have done videos. People send me this stuff all the time. Look who's talking about you. I don't watch any of that because I stay in my own lane. I stay away from that. Remember, I'm older too. Like I'm really confident about what I do. I don't need to, I already know what I'm talking about. Is what I mean. I'm not learning. Kids taught me. Adults don't teach me anything about kids. Kids taught me all this. So yeah. The only things I will look at is if someone says, this kid, look at this behavior. What do you think this is? I'll look at that. But I won't listen to any other advice because I never learn from adults. I learn from kids. But I will look up if someone says, this kid's doing something really odd. What is it? I will often look at that. So I get sent a lot of stuff like that because I love figuring this out, right? So usually I get an idea. I'll tell you the most difficult. I had a really rough morning. I had a couple of clients this morning, teenage stuff. And teenagers are as hard as I want to be able to, as easy as I want to be able to say, this is what I think you should do. Teenagers scare the bejeebies out of me because they're so, when they get mad and they get upset, they're capable of doing really drastic stuff. So you got to be really careful. That's why I always say you never discipline teenagers. You bond with them first, and then you start negotiating what you want. But yeah. Yeah, I've been admitting on here, and I feel kind of bad about it. I kind of feel like I should admit it, but I did put that video out as clickbait. I was trying to bring the attackers out again to see if I'm still relevant, and they did come and they attacked me like crazy again. So that's really good. Actually, if anything, I think it's worse. So that's good. That means people are, why are they watching me if they don't agree with me? I don't get that. So, and I know where it comes from. I get it. They're not really secure about what they're doing. That's why they have to come over and insult me. And I love it. I love it because it just, they're watching. I matter to them, good or bad. I matter. So that's good. That means that maybe they're willing to open up their minds. Okay. 2-year-old tantrums and hitting. Okay, so I have 2 different courses. One's on tantrums, and I call it tantrum busting for toddlers. And then the other one is on toddlers who hit, bite, etc. They're actually different. Are they just hitting during a tantrum? Then you might want to look at my tantrum course. Do they normally just hit anyway, just to get their own way, like they're hitters? That's the other course. Some people buy them both, but they're actually quite different. One's a behavior, one's an outburst. They're different. But anyway, 2-year-old hitting is consistent corrective actions. You say no every single time they do it, and then you make sure there's a corrective action. So take away a toy, take something away, and then you got to keep doing it though. It's got to be repetitive, consistent. It has to be. They're going to remember the one time you didn't do it. They're so clever. They're so clever that way. It's like, yeah, you did the right thing 99 times, but that 100th time you didn't. So I'm in charge. I'm going to keep doing it. I don't think they're that evil, but that's the way it looks. Like it's like, you remembered that one time, but they do. They remember when they get away with stuff. That's why. She runs on the opposite side when I tell her to come here, and then she's running towards the street. Get her on a leash. Make her earn her freedom. You always have, if they're runners, put them on a leash. You don't want them flattened by a bus, do you? So it's like you put them in a car seat and restrain them to keep them alive. You restrain them anywhere else to keep them alive. And then you make them earn their freedom. So you go to the park or somewhere safe, and then you don't have the leash on them. So you let them off the leash and you say, okay, so let's have fun. And then when you say, okay, come over here, if they don't come, run, click them back in. And you say no. So just make sure that somewhere safe if you're going to take them off the leash. Don't worry about what other people think. Just a tantrum. I'll go ahead and look at your course. Yeah, those are my mini courses. They're just $29, those toddler courses. For 3 and over, I can look at my behavior board. It's free on my website, bratbusters.com. It teaches you how to give respect to get it. It's unique because parents are on there too. Some parents don't want to be on there. So I've actually worked with a family once. Sometimes one parent will and one parent won't. That's fine. I say, well, just ignore the other parent. Don't even make them part of this. If they're not willing to be accountable for their actions, I can't work with them. But then often when they start to see the other parent get respect, they get on board with it. But I was hired once a while ago, years ago now, and they both said, well, I really like what you had to say, but we refuse to be on the behavior board. So I gave them a refund. So I think they came back to me a couple of years later with bigger problems, older kids. But anyway, so you have to be willing to be accountable as a parent. Like my kids knew if I did something wrong, they knew that I was going to make amends. I was accountable. I used to say, my son's very funny. He's 33 now, but he used to say, because I used to say, I'm really good at apologizing, because I am. I know there's 4 steps to apologizing. I'm very good at it. And I said, I'm very good at apologizing. And he said, well, that's because you've had so much practice with it. Smarty pants. Okay. My daughter to stop scratching her brother when she gets mad. She's 2.5, very smart. Yeah, they're all smart. But yeah, you just say no. And then you make sure she can't get near him again for a while. So you keep her away from him for a while. And she's going to put up a bigger fight. By the way, it usually gets worse before it gets better. If they've been in charge and you try and take the leadership role now, they're going to fight you tooth and nail. They're going to get way worse before they get better. But remember, that's part of it, because they're going to fight back to get the control. They don't want you to have it because they've had it. So yeah, they're going to get worse before they get better. But behind every storm is a rainbow. You got to be willing to go through that storm. I know some parents say to me, "But I don't want the storm." I say, "Well, I can't help you. Like, you have to be able to be willing to prove that you can you can last the storm." So behind every scene is a lesson. That's why I embrace them. If a kid ever tantrumed with me, like let's say someone else's kid I was looking after, and they said, "If you don't do that, I'm going to do that," and then they start, and I go, "Fine, have at it." They're actually quite shocked. That doesn't bother me at all. So then they just learn, hey, that's not going to work with Lisa. Maybe I should just try being nice. Because kids only do what works, but not at 2.5. It's consistent corrective action. She hasn't got that frontal lobe developed yet. That's a little, all they've got at 2.5 is like one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. She can't really stop and think that much, but she'll learn through repetition that every time she hits her brother, she gets pushed away or pushed out of the fun. You will hold her away from the fun. Someone said, what is wrong with you? Oh, what are the 4 steps to apologizing? Okay. The first step is say, I'm sorry, which I don't really care about. That word's overused. I said, I'm sorry, you're not very forgiving, but you murdered my whole family. But I said I was sorry. It's so overused. They want that in courts now when someone murders someone. Do they show remorse? Who gives a crap? I don't care what they think or feel. They killed someone. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The word sorry is so overused. I don't know why that is so ridiculous. Anyway, say you're sorry, because everyone wants to hear I'm sorry, and it starts the ball rolling. First step, I'm sorry. The second step is be accountable. Say it was all my fault. Don't say I did that because you did this. So don't blame the other person for your actions. So first step, sorry, it was all my fault. The third step is the most important one. Make amends. Say, what can I do to make it up to you? Then the fourth step is don't keep repeating it. If you keep repeating the same mistake, that whole apology meant squat. It's just your get out of jail free card. But yeah, so. My son calls out for everything we are doing wrong when we get on him for certain things. What is he? 8, 9? How old is he? Adventure mom. Remain accountable for certain things. How do we remain accountable? He calls out, but also keep our leadership. He calls out, 8. Did I say 8? Did I actually guess that? How did I know that? I just knew. Boy, that was a good one. I'm usually not right on the money like that. But anyway, yeah, so an 8-year-old calls you out whatever you're doing. What they're doing is they're heading into the tween years. They're not quite there yet. They think they can get away with stuff. They're trying to prove you wrong. They're trying to shake you up. So if you know that you're doing the right thing, like if kids had called me out and I knew I'd done the right thing, I would have gone, whatever. But if they called me out and I knew I'd done the wrong thing, I'd say, you're right. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. What can I do to make it up to you? I would do that. So just know if you're doing the right thing. You have to know if you're doing the right thing or not. That's the thing. But if they call you out, I used to say to my kids, you call me out, call attention to anything you want, but never in the moment. If I'm rushing, there's usually a reason why. My thing was that I would get impatient and intolerant because I'm trying to race around, trying to get out of the house. So I would get, come on, let's go, get like that. And the kids always would look at each other and smile because they knew I'd make it up to them later on. But I always said, in the moment, never challenge me because I'm mothering, I'm, whatever. But later on, then they'd always say later on, Mom, remember earlier? And I go, I know. So it's okay to make mistakes, but teach children that they have to approach you with respect. That's how you approach them too. Like I never yelled at my kids or anything. I approach them with respect. So, but yeah, just kind of know if you're doing the right thing or not. That's what helps. I was working with someone, I can't remember the situation now, but it reminded me of that. And the kid was always picking, whenever they said anything to their kid, the kid always had a million things to tell. Well, you did this, well, you did that, well, you did that. And shoot, I wish I could remember what that was now. Oh, I can't remember. Calls us out, yeah. Yeah, that's okay, but it sounds like it's just over the top. I don't quite know what's going on. I would actually need an example there to really give you a better answer. What do you do when you repeatedly tell a toddler not to touch? So something they continue. Well, because you're talking, you're not taking action. Toddlers don't learn through words. It's consistent corrective actions, not words. So if they're told not to touch something, every time they go near it, you just say no and push them away and hold them away from it. Or take that item away. But yeah, it has to be every single time. It might take about a week. And parents say, well, I don't have time for that. Well, I can't, if you don't have time to parent. I mean, that's just part of it. If you want to correct this behavior, you have to have time, you have to make time for it. Make it a job. Make this like one behavior, we're going to solve this. And it might take about a week. It might just take a weekend. But yeah, it has to be every single time. Remember, they learn through repetition. They don't learn the first time or the first 50th time. It might be the 100th time. You got to catch them every single time. I child-proofed my home, so I never had to say no to my kids. The whole house was completely child-proof. People loved coming over to my house with their little ones because they never had to watch them. It was completely child-proof. And then my kids would go through different stages. They went through the curtain stage where they'd get wound up in curtains. So I folded those up over top of the curtain rod. Unless I was right there, then I might let them get in the curtains. What else did I do? Oh yeah, my kids weren't climbers. But if you have a climber, I would put bells on everything that they would use to climb with. Like if they have to pull out a chair to climb, I would put a bell on the chair. You can get alarms too. I had a client who was looking for her, how old was this kid? Little, 1.5 or like really little. Couldn't find her kid. Looked all over the house, was panicked. Looking for doors that had been opened. Someone had come in and grabbed her kid. I mean, she was panicking. You know where she found that kid? She's looking around everywhere. She's in the kitchen and she looks up. The kid was on top of the fridge. They had used the drawers and then the counter and then the oven or the bread maker or something and then climbed up on top of the fridge. Imagine if that kid had fallen off right on top of his head. So yeah, I would, and I said, put bells everywhere, bells on everything so you can hear them when they're climbing. Imagine that, looking around and then going, wow, that's where you are. The only reason she saw him was he started laughing. How to deal with a teen that never takes accountability for things. That's a big question. Teens are my specialty. I love that age because I actually have to stop and think. It's often challenging in coaching. If they won't take accountability, make an accountability system. That's my behavior board. There's a rule and a consequence for everybody. But you don't get respect. You have to get respect before you can discipline teenagers. And the two most important skills when you're parenting teenagers, number one by far with all ages, is listening. You got to listen to understand and show empathy. You do not listen to gather information to lecture with. So when a teenager tells you something, oh my God, I can't believe I did this, and they tell you something, and then you go, yeah, that would be frustrating. And then shut up. Just stop talking, because the better you get at that, they talk to you more and more. If they want your advice, they're going to ask for it. The better you get at listening, the more they tell you and the more they're going to ask for your advice. So that's the most important skill with teenagers, especially with teenagers. The second most important skill when you're parenting teenagers is negotiation skills. You do something like this. You say, look, I want all your dirty clothes in the hamper and nowhere else from now on. What do you want from me? Let's start the negotiations. So it's give and take, okay? Show them respect. They're not children anymore, and they're not adults anymore either. They're somewhere in between. It's a very confusing time. They've got a lot of pressure on them, hormones flying, a lot of social stuff they're learning, so it's a real high-pressure time. That's why they're often really lazy at home, and they're also very self-centered because they're going through a lot. They're my favorite age, teenagers. Yeah. What's the key to raising a kid with pathological demand avoidance? They're all the same. I've never worked with an easy kid. And I never understand that one. That's like ODD to me, oppositional defiant disorder. It's just putting a title on a kid who's just more feisty. That's what that says to me. Anyway, I don't understand that one at all. But I've worked with kids who've been labeled that. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same. You know, the more difficult the child, the quicker I can get their respect. You know why? Because when they come up, those kids who are really difficult, really feisty, okay? When they come up against a strong, calm leader that knows how to make them feel good about themselves, they go like this. Oh, finally. They're the easiest ones for me to turn around. The quickest ones, not the easiest, the quickest. Yeah, because they desperately need leadership. So it's all the same stuff. ADHD preschoolers, same stuff. It's all the same stuff. Just calm leadership, calm leadership. Very clear directions too, because people say to me quite frequently, well, they should have known. Why? Have you told them that? Well, no, but they should know. Your insults are so bad. Oh, well, don't watch me then. It's okay. Please help. How do I make my 4-year-old stop pretending she is dumb and doesn't know anything? Because it would have worked in the past. Kids at past the age of 3, 3.5, 3 3/4 only do what works. It means it would have worked in the past. Playing dumb works. Doesn't know how to do anything. Well, there's a consequence if she doesn't do it. So if she has something she has to do and just, oh, I forgot, we'll say, okay, well, here's the consequence. Okay, I'll do it. No, the consequence is happening. Well, I didn't know. Well, you'll know next time, won't you? So yeah, call their bluff. Call her bluff. What is it? Okay. What is it appropriate for you to give your kids when it comes to negotiating? Like money, prizes? No, nothing like that. Usually with teenagers, you'll say, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper and nowhere else. What do you want from me? I want you to get off my back and stop nagging. I would say, well, that's not possible. Let's negotiate. How about I'm not allowed to talk after dinner or something like that. I can't say anything negative, or, like you start the negotiations. It's all about the way you react with it, the way you talk to each other. It's that kind of thing. Or I want you to, I don't want a curfew anymore. I don't like curfews. I think they're over control. I don't like them. I never had curfews with my kids. We discussed when they were coming home every time they went out. And I was very negotiable, and so were they. If I said, I'm not feeling great, can you stay home tonight? And they would. So, like if I needed to get to bed, I was a single mom. So if I needed to get to bed early because I was sick or something, they would just stay home. So it was very respectful back and forth. So it's mostly stuff like that. It's relationship-based stuff. But I'll tell you a funny one. One of my favorites with a mom. It's kind of an amalgam because several of them do this, but this one invented this one thing about it. She had a 16-year-old who every single night she took him out for a driving lesson he had a new car, they bought him. Anyway, so every single night she wanted him to learn how to drive, and he just has learners. So they went out every single night after dinner and they fought like crazy. She was nagging him the whole time. She got on his nerves, and they had not had a good relationship for years. Like, once he started becoming hormonal, like a teenager, they were at war, basically. So anyway, they're in the car and I said, I'll tell you what, your rule, the mom, your rule is no yelling. And I always say, make sure you break the rules so you can show them that you're accountable too. Anyway, so no yelling was her rule. Sure enough, she yelled. I said, don't force a yell, but if you feel one coming on, let it fly. So she yelled at him, and her consequence was that night on driving lesson, she was not allowed to speak unless it's a safety issue, like look out for that bus kind of thing. So that was her rule. And she goes, well, I can't do that. And I said, well, you're going to have to because that's your consequence, right? So I wouldn't negotiate that. I said, that's a perfect one for you. So anyway, she goes, okay, I'll do it. Do you know what she did? This is what she invented. I thought it was so cute. She put painter's tape on her mouth strip because she said, there's no way I'm going to remember not to talk during his driving lesson. So she just put some masking tape or painter's tape on her mouth like this to remind herself. Anyway, they're getting in the car and her son looked over at her, didn't say anything. And because he knew she wasn't allowed to talk because she'd yelled. So that was her consequence. She wasn't allowed to talk during the driving lesson. So anyway, so she's getting in the car. When she gets in, she catches a glimpse of herself in the side view mirror with this painter tape. She started to laugh. The painter's tape went like this as she was laughing. It was blowing like this with her laughter. Her son started cracking up. They laughed the whole time. See, it was the first time that the two of them had laughed together in years, and they ended up having a blast. So that's how you give. You see, you humiliate yourself sometimes. That one worked out really, really well. And that was just the start. You bond with teenagers. I teach how to bond with your teenager. The discipline comes later. You got to bond with them first. Daughter 6, how can I have a better attachment? She views me as no mummy and mean. No mummy and mean. Well, I just said that, bonding. Isn't that a coincidence? I just said you want to bond with your children. I was definitely the goofy playmate mom. I was the friend, the buddy, the pal, but I was very much a leader too. So the kids knew you treat mom with respect because she treats us with respect. But if you don't treat her with respect, she's not so fun anymore. I just would shut it down, right? So, but yeah, you want to have fun. Now you bond with your children in their world. You don't bond with a little girl at the nail salon. You go to the park and roll down the hill with her, or you play a game that she's better at than you, or you play a game like whipped cream in the face. You play in their world. You bond in her world. Play with her. Have fun with her. And put it as your rule on the behavior board that you have to play hide and seek with her every single night for 10 minutes or something like that. Start bonding with her, and it's always in their world. Always. Always. And it's something they're better at. Like I used to do crazy stuff with my kids. We do like mini Olympics, stuff like that. Let's just play mini Olympics. It was always something I couldn't do. Like, can you do a whole lap of the kitchen, dining, living room area, hopping on one foot? Well, I couldn't do that, but they were doing it, laughing at me because I was so bad at it. So I just have fun in their world. Bond with them in their world. By the way, when kids know you enjoy their company and you know that you really have fun with them, like really fun laughing and like real fun, you're not just taking them to a game and watching them play something. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting in the game with them, doing something with them. They just naturally want to please you because you become like that real fun parent. That was always my strength. People used to say, how do you bond with these kids? Like, troubled teens and all that. I said, I'm funny and fun. So I bond with them through fun, through humor, through enjoying them, finding something to enjoy. I can't get into it with teenage stuff because I tell a lot of stories when I'm coaching, but I can't. Some of them are really just sensitive, right? So but anyway, I don't want to scare parents on here who don't have teenagers. I save those stories for my parents with teenagers. How to bond with teenagers. But you don't try and outsmart kids. You never set yourself up as the authority, like you know better. I never did that. My mother never did that. When I was little, I would go up to my mom, Mommy, something happened at school. What should I do? She always said this, I don't know. You're a smart girl. You can figure it out. And then we'd talk about it. And I thought I was coming up with my own solutions. She was just guiding me into she always thought I was coming up with my own solutions. I thought I was so smart. So, but you never want to outsmart your kids. Like when my kids would come to me and I never told them what to do. They'd say, what do you think I should do? And I'd say, I don't know. Let's figure it out. What do you think you should do? And then we just discuss it. I always wanted them to solve their own problems. I never wanted to solve my kids' problems. I just didn't. I wanted to empower them to do that themselves. You want to toughen your kids up. You don't want to be protecting them, rolling out the red carpet, making everything easy for them. You're not preparing them for life. That's that pleaser parent who wants to validate every single thought and feeling they have and coddling them and everything. That's not the real world. They grow into the self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues because they don't have any strength. They don't have any fortitude. They've never had to solve their own problems, or they've never had a difficult teacher that you didn't go in there and try and save the day. You want them to learn how to deal with some adversity. I was thrilled when my kids got, I won't say what grade in case she was watching, but they got the one teacher that wasn't great, didn't like kids. And I was happy. I thought, great, there's some adversity for my kids to have to deal with. Like, I like that. Not at home, but I like them to go out and have to deal with difficult people, have to learn how to deal with them. Good question. What if we're not funny or fun? Yeah, I don't talk about that a lot because my whole personality is goofy. So that's my strength with kids, was being goofy and just goofing around with them. So that was my strength. They wanted that to continue, therefore they had to be polite. That was sort of what I did. But anyway, that's just my style. Most of my clients aren't funny, right? So, but what I say is you find your strength. You can always bond with them. There's always a way of bonding with kids, but it's in their world. So one of them was a really good artist, so they did drawing together. Another one was music. Another one was storytelling. Oh my God, I just got the chills thinking about this. Years ago, I had this one mom, very, very, I think she was a librarian, and very, very quiet. And she goes, but I'm not fun or funny. And I said, what are you good at? And she goes, well, I do love to tell stories. And I said, well, tell me a story. And she goes, and I said, like what? And she goes, well, I just make them up in the moment. And I said, well, tell me a story about myself. By the time she was finished, this like 3-minute story, I wanted to curl up into her lap. And I said, there you go. That's how you're going to bond with your kids. So, but yeah, she didn't really do that a lot, she said. But anyway, so everyone's got something, some way of, how do you bond with adults? Me, it's always self-deprecating humor. That's my personality. So that's what I use with kids too, but that's just my style. Other people are great, whatever. We've all got something that we're good at. What do you think about gentle parenting? Surely they have moments of anger too. I don't believe them. Whatever. I don't comment on that because I don't know. I honestly don't know much about them. I stay in my own lane. I never look at what anyone else is teaching or anything. I stay away from that. I'm kid-based, kid-taught. Kids taught me everything. So an adult has never taught me anything about kids. Well, they have, but I never listened to them because I had to get some training for certain things I did. But yeah, I always found my own way. I just worked in my own style. But yeah, I don't critique. I critique methods, but I don't know who's teaching them. That's why I don't look. If I looked and found out there's some other parenting coach out there teaching something that I criticize all the time, in my head, I'd be criticizing that person. I can't do that. Like I wouldn't be able to say I hate timeouts if I knew who was teaching them. Do you know what I'm saying? Because then I would be just tacky, criticizing other people. You know what I mean? But I can criticize things that are done. God, I don't know who's teaching them. So you're not licensed? No, not at all. I have no qualifications whatsoever. I'm just kid taught. But a lot of I would say about 40 to 50% of my clients have child development degrees. Some of them are child psychologists. A lot of them are teachers and principals and school counselors, but I've never been hired by a youth worker. A youth worker works with troubled teens, which is my history too. And if you can get respect from a troubled teen, you don't need my help. Because that's the PhD in all this. If you haven't worked with troubled teens and got respect from them, you got some work to do because that is the PhD in all this stuff. And it is very humbling. You'll never outsmart them ever. I wouldn't even think of doing that. Yeah. You're like a breath of fresh air. I've never heard that before. Thank you very much. Your parenting style is exactly how I like to parent. Great. It's just common sense, right? It's just an experience and it's people skills. Plus, I teach this every single day, and I get results with all these clients. A lot of my parents, I go in waves. Like I get a lot of right now. I've got a lot of parents of teenagers. Then I get parents of toddlers. Mostly, it's in the middle. Most of the parents that I get have kids between 3 and 12, usually. But right now, it's a lot of teenagers. Because that's my specialty. I think because we're coming to the end of school too. But anyway, it's just common sense. That's all. I think everyone needs to be friends with one of those that can handle difficult teens. You won't find a lot of parenting coaches, I've been told, because it's rare, that specialize in troubled teens. That's where I started my business because there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. You know how teens can be, right? The stuff they can get into. I'm very careful how I word stuff. I always know what I want them to do, but I have to be very careful because you don't want to push any teen too far, right? So yeah, it's a bit of a you have to have a lot of confidence to deal with that and a lot of experience. I mean, you have to because it's a huge responsibility. I'll tell you something interesting. One time, this was years ago. I can't go into a great detail, but anyway, I visited this teenager. I can't say much about this. Anyway, he ended up in a facility, and he was a danger to himself. So he hadn't met me yet. I've been working with his parents, and he was it was very, very difficult. And so I went in there, and I just turned up. I'd gotten the permission to go in and see him, and I turned up, and I just sat he was in this room, and he was tied up. And I went in there and I just sat and I said, did you want to, he knew who I was. He had never met me before. He knew who I was. Anyway, so I sat down with him and I said, did you want to talk about anything? And he didn't say anything. And I said, fine, I'll just be sitting here. Now, I didn't charge for this. I used to do stuff like this more when I first started my business. I don't do this anymore. But anyway, so because it was such a horrible situation. So I just had he had old magazines. You know, in those places, they have the worst magazines. Anyway, I'm looking at a Good Housekeeping magazine. And I think I sat there for maybe a couple hours. And all I did was leaf through the magazines. I didn't try and talk to him, nothing. I just sat there. So anyway, later on, and when he became more lucid, his mother said, you know what she did? And the mother said, what? And he said, she just sat there and read a magazine. And then she said, what do you think about that? And he goes, and he said, wow, he says, I would have felt guilty doing anything to myself after that because she wasted all that time on me. So sometimes just your presence, just being there, showing that you care enough just to sit there and look at a magazine for 2 hours can be the tiniest little things with teenagers that they pick up on, because he knew I wasn't getting paid for that. I told the mother to tell him that I wasn't charging for that. If I was getting paid for it, it wouldn't have had the same effect. So, but yeah, the teenagers, you got to find different ways of getting to them, of making them understand that they do matter. And but yeah, that's a whole other thing. That's my favorite age, but it is tricky. Anyway, I got to go. Thanks so much for watching. My website again is bratbusters.com. You can hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses, or download my free behavior board. You're on that too. That's what makes it work. You got to give respect to get it. Anyway, I got to run. So thanks so much. I'll be back again tomorrow. And I'm also filming on YouTube because that's where these are being saved now. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye now.